Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we've actually got to talk about China because they limited online gaming a few years back, and it's had interesting results, and not the results that the researchers thought it would have. Now, this is coming from Rob Thubrun of TechSpot, and here's what's going on. Back in 2021, China tightened restrictions on the number of hours that basically their citizens under the age of 18, could play online games. Now, since November of 2019, minors had been allowed to access them for 1.5 hours on weekdays and 3 hours on holidays and weekends. They also weren't allowed to play between 10 p.m. through 8 a.m., but this was cut to just 1 hour of playtime in 2021. Specifically between 8 p.m. and 9 p.m. on Fridays, weekends, and holidays, meaning they had 1 hour on Friday and then 1 hour on, I'm guessing, Saturday and Sunday, or maybe combined, and then obviously if there's a holiday, a day off, whatever that is. Now, you'd think that basically restrictions at extreme would have a major impact on how much time basically the youth of China were playing online games. However, PC Gamer reported that a new study by several computer scientists is suggesting otherwise. Now, this report, titled "No Evidence That Chinese Playtime Mandates Reduced Heavy Gaming in One Segment of the Video Games Industry," is what we're talking about here. Now, the study notes that governments around the world are considering regulatory measures aimed at reducing young people's time spent on digital devices, specifically video games, which raises a question of just how effective China's measures essentially have worked. So the entire world, interestingly enough, is looking at China, the largest population in the world, with one of the largest youth populations in the world, and just basically to see how it did, understanding that's an authoritarian government. They can pivot and say, yeah, it's 1 hour, as opposed to, let's say, here in the United States, where that would be debated for 20 years, and then we would agree on 5, so there you go. Now, the study used a massive amount, just a huge amount of anonymized data spanning 1 million separate game identifiers, 7.04 billion hours of playtime, and around 2.4 billion gamer profiles. There were multiple accounts for single users, for the record, that was collected by from Chinese users between August 16th of 2019 through January 16 of 2020. Those dates were specifically chosen to basically avoid the lockdowns that skewed the results. China went hardcore in a lockdown due to COVID, as did many countries and states here in the United States, and obviously by virtue of that, screen time went way up. So to basically exclude that, they picked the data from before the actual lockdowns. Now, data was provided by Unity Technologies. They make the Unity engine that's used in 61% of all game developers worldwide. As it was anonymous, the data did not reveal which users were under 18, so different methods were used to interpret it. The results found that while the majority of players were gaming for less than an hour per week before the regulations, there was actually an increase in the amount of heavy play, 4 hours per day, 6 days per week, after the restrictions were introduced, meaning game time went up, not down. People were bucking the system. They also noted that the use of VPNs, or virtual private networks, and account sharing will always mean that basically we can't cover every scenario. Nothing can be 100%, but when you're talking about billions of hours of gameplay, that is a rather large portion of that, which means we can get pretty accurate numbers, even if we can't exclude things like VPN use. Now, according to the researchers, and I quote, "For the domain of gaming, our study provides evidence that broadly scoped restriction policies on youth digital behavior may lead to no widespread and uniform decrease in utilization." They also add the caveat that, and I quote again, "While our analysis suggests that the likelihood of heavy playtime may not have been reduced in some parts of the game industry after regulation, they are unable to estimate how prevalent this phenomenon is among young people specifically." But if you were looking at that before the pandemic, before the lockdowns, they actually had an increase after restrictions happened of game time. So, and it's not, for the record, the parents playing more, it's the kids. And so as you're looking at that, like let's say society-wide, if another country is saying, let's look at banning this for an hour, people tend to buck the system. Screw you, I'll do what I want. I grew up on Rage Against the Machine, and if this youth's Rage Against the Machine is playing more than the allotted screen time, and I'm guessing it's on your honor, but that said, China tracks your internet very deeply. We'll see what happens. So I think it's interesting, but food for thought that I think nobody really expected that we would see hours more game time per week than previously. And I think that's something interesting in an authoritarian country. I'm surprised there haven't been repercussions, but we'll see what happens. And that is your news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please, attempt to stay private. Thanks, everybody.